So this is the blue-black Explorer Rogues deck that I was playing last stream. Shout out to Milico asking for a little bit more clarity on what the deck was. So I included a copy of Bloodchief's Thirst, a copy of Cling to Dust because it's like repeatable card draw and can deal with graveyard hate obviously. 3 copies of Fatal Push, 4 of Thieves Guild Enforcer, which is one of the kind of cards that makes the deck tick. It gets buffed by Soaring Thought Thief, so if you played Rogues at all, you're familiar with this card. For 1 mana with Flash and giving it Death Touch, it can be a surprisingly strong card. 4 of Thoughtseize, one of the strongest cards in Explorer. Soaring Thought Thief is kind of the lord of this deck, and with flying is a pretty good threat. He's got Flash, and you're playing most of your deck on their turn, so really good card and works really well with this package of cards. I'd say the most used card, the most versatile card in the deck is definitely Drown in the Loch, which is good in most every format. With Soaring Thought Thief in the deck, Lofty Denial is basically just a 2 mana counterspell. Counterspell's banned in this format now, so it's as close as you're going to get, and it's really powerful. I mean, if you're hitting things with Thoughtseize and Fatal Push turns 1 and 2, and you can counter on turn 2 or 3 with a Lofty Denial, it's pretty hard for them to get in the game. Adding Mazemind Tome and Search for Escanto were additions that I felt like worked really well after testing out Zan Syed's Decklists in Historic, so I kept those since they're legal in this format as well. And they're just super useful for card filtering and getting kind of answers back into your hand, refilling your hand after you've used your counters or interaction. So I also added Narset because this deck ultimately plays like, I don't know, it's kind of a mix between tempo and control, but definitely more controlling. So because we have so many instants and sorceries in the deck and so few threats, I added 1 Narset, which has played really well for me so far. Go Blank's a little counterintuitive because it wipes their graveyard, but decks that want to exploit their graveyard, it can be kind of game winning if you play it on the right turn. So just 1 copy of it has worked well. There's definitely games where you can take it out, but just ripping their hand with Thoughtseize and Go Blank and attacking with flyers has been good enough a lot of times. Kaito's a really good planeswalker for 3 mana. If I had more of them in my collection, I'd probably add more of them. I think Zan's list had all of the copies of it in there, so yeah, probably include that if you have it. The only really spicy card in this deck is the Sword of Forge and Frontier, I think, because I opened it in a pack and wanted to play it. But at the same time, it does have protection from red and green. And in this format, that's dominated by Rakdos and mono green. It's going to potentially win you some games frequently. So yeah, I would definitely include that one too. The Sword of Forge and Frontier. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from red and green. Whenever the creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. You may play an additional land this turn. So all of those have come up for me when I've had it in deck, in games, and have won me a game. So I feel like it's worth including. I know a lot of people would dispute that or question that, and I don't think they're wrong, but it's been fun to play, and I think it is a good card, so shout out to that one. I guess I'll pull up Kaito too. He's a legendary planeswalker. At the beginning of your end step, if he's entered the battlefield this turn, he phases out. His +1s draw a card and discard a card unless you attack this turn. In this list, you're attacking almost every turn because you have flyers. His -2 is creating 1/1 ninja, and he can't be blocked, so it's an aggressive card. Also creates a blocker for himself. So at -7, you get an emblem. Whenever a creature you control deals damage to a player, search your library for a blue or black creature and put it onto the battlefield. I've honestly never gotten to -7 with Kaito, but he's pretty much only come up in a couple of games so far, so maybe someday. Bloodchief's Thirst. So for 1 mana, you can kill something 2 or less. If you pay 3, you're killing a planeswalker. which comes up often in Explorer and Historic. So you want some way to deal with those one way or another. If you know of a better way to do it in Explorer, please let me know. Likewise for Historic. Test of Talents is a card that I added just because it's pretty powerful. You get to counter an instant or sorcery and search its controller's graveyard, hand, or library for all of those cards and exile them. I mean, for 2 mana, if you're playing against a control deck, they're going to lose a significant number of valuable cards. If you know what they're playing, you know what to counter. The other card in the deck that is core to Rogues is Into the Story. There's 4 of those in there, and you're almost always hitting the cost reduction for Into the Story with Soaring Thought Thief and Thieves Guild Enforcer in the deck. Into the Story is a 7 mana instant. It costs 3 less to cast. If an opponent has 7 or more cards in their graveyard, you draw 4 cards. It just refills your hand after you've played the early turns out and just gives you more gas to keep going. It's really good. I know it's really expensive, but for people who've played Rogues before, you know how powerful this is, or people who've played against Rogues, you know how powerful this can be. As far as land slots go, I think I would actually add a creature land here. If you had Mutavault, I would definitely play that. Just don't have it. I should probably get that and include it. I just noticed that I have 23 lands in this deck. I think you could actually, I've seen lists that play 22. Let's see how many Zan had in his deck. Yeah, his land count is 21. So yeah, I think it actually could make a couple of cuts on land here. And benefit by playing, looks like, you know, maybe 2-3 more cards. Comment down below if you have a couple of thoughts on what those 2-3 cards that could be added or taken away should be. The list was based on a list by Zan Syed. It was originally a historic list. There's a couple of additions that you could make now. Stuff like Snapcaster Mage especially would be good in this list, I think. So yeah, you could definitely check out the original list here from Zan Syed. Shout out to him. Follow him. He streams on Twitch too. Thanks for checking out this deck tech. Want to give a shout out one more time to Milico. Sorry if I said your name wrong there, buddy, but appreciate you supporting the channel, showing us some love. Catch you next time, guys.